Welcome to Running Down the Clock, where we break down all of this week's big news, events, and controversies from the National Football League. Over the next 45 minutes, we will give you basic fan perspective and opinion on the most important stories and moments happening now. So, let's start the clock. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Running Down the Clock. I am Tyler Walzak here, as always, with Poya Ricey. Poya, how are you?
I'm good. Just fighting again to get through these previews because I know you and I don't love the preseason. We're season guys.
I don't like the preseason in any sport.
No.
And any sport. I think I don't know why people watch it. I don't know why people go to it. It just nothing matters.
It's a taste of what they love. That's why. That's
especially in football. Like, thankfully, knock on wood, we haven't had any serious injuries to any like key guys, but it always tends to happen sometime in the preseason. So thankfully we haven't had that yet. I mean, Joe Burrow,
yeah,
but he should be back by week 1, but he came close. But apparently he'll be back for week 1.
Okay. You heard Jamar Chase's comments on him though?
What?
You heard Jamar Chase's comments on his injury?
Yeah. But that makes sense. Like, why would you?
I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. If anyone's listening now and they're like, what are you guys talking about? Jamar Chase said, I don't want Burrow back for week 1 if he's not 100% healthy. Basically meaning like we're going to need him towards the end of the season. So if he needs to take a couple games off now, that's much better for our team and what our goal is, which is Super Bowl, rather than getting him back early to start the season strong.
Yeah, he wanted him back week 5. He said, as long as we're back week 5, we're good.
Yeah, it makes sense. I like it.
Yeah.
But I mean, they want to get him in there because the first 3 games now takes teams to figure out how to play football again because no one plays in the preseason if you're a name like that. This week, we are going to do an NFC, AFC West preview. If you've been listening to the last episodes, we always choose a division and we do the NFC and AFC sides of it. But we do have some news that we want to talk about before, and it's just overall NFL stuff. All 3 points I want to talk about are running backs. Let's go with Alvin Kamara first. In a little bit of trouble last year with the thing that happened in Vegas, only suspended by the NFL for 3 games.
So it seems a bit inconsistent with some of the other suspensions, no? What was the reasoning for the 3 games? Like what? You think a lot of these guys who get charged usually get a lot more.
Usually it's about 6 games. I think Kareem Hunt was like 8 games or something like that. I don't remember what Kareem Hunt did, but Kamara, the charges were dropped or something or they found him like, I don't know, something happened in court where I guess the charges were dropped. I don't know for sure if that's the correct statement, but
the charges were dropped.
I don't know if they were dropped or if they just
reduced to 3 games. That's
well, just the NFL was just like, okay, well, this is nothing. 3 games it is. That does help them out. Helps out fantasy teams everywhere as well. And then the next 2 pieces of news are signees. One, we knew Dalvin Cook. We knew he was going to go to the Jets. It was between the Jets and the Dolphins, and it just seemed increasingly more like it was going to be the Jets over the past month. And Ezekiel Elliott to the Patriots, which is a little surprising because they usually just kind of go with whatever backs they have cheap.
Did they not get him on the cheap?
I think it's like $6.4 million up to that, which is still like, I don't know if they've had a guy make over $2 million in the last like 10 years at that position. And Dalvin Cook's at like 8.6 or something like that.
Right.
So no one's getting a 10 that they want. But I mean, Dalvin Cook to the Jets is huge news. I did see, we'll talk about the Jets and the Broncos in this episode because there's a little crossover there that I want to talk about. But Zeke to the Pats also helps out what is it? Mac Jones's development. Because that's what they need to do. That's the whole season for the Patriots is figuring out if Mac Jones can do this. Okay, so NFC, AFC West, where else do we start other than
Well, it depends. You want to start from the bottom? Because we got one of the best teams in the league. We got the Kansas City Chiefs who could go to the Super Bowl.
Super Bowl favorites.
Start at the bottom with the Cardinals, who are likely going to be the worst team in the NFL.
Let's go, because we're going to jumble up the order anyways. Let's just talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, because let's give them respect and talk about them first. Golf rules.
Yeah.
Super Bowl favorites. Anytime you have Mahomes on the field, you're probably going to be in the top 10, let alone Super Bowl favorites. Last year they weren't, and everybody made a mistake by not betting on them. This year they're back. Andy Reid's back. Patrick Mahomes is back. Travis Kelce's back. There's not much more we can say. Their wideouts this year, they don't have Juju Smith-Schuster anymore, which I think he was just a rental player anyways last year. Sky Moore is coming into his second year. I think he's one of the breakout candidates for second-year players this year.
I've heard a little bit about that, and I think so. He looked promising last year.
Plus, he was highly touted coming out of college, and he's with an offense that I know, granted, they spread the ball around a lot, but someone's going to need to help Travis Kelce.
Was Valdez-Scantling there last year?
Yeah, no? I don't believe he was, no.
No, so he's new this year too, right?
Yeah.
Again, he's I don't see him as a workhorse guy. He's a share the wealth kind of guy.
Yeah, I mean, I never trust a guy who leaves Green Bay to go on to greener pastures, but I don't like it never ends up going well for them. I don't know any Green Bay wide receiver that's left Green Bay and has had a better career. The only person is Devontae Adams, who we still don't know about, but he wasn't as good as he was in Green Bay last year, anyways.
Could you not make the argument that this is the one of the few situations where you're going to an equally good quarterback?
So if not better quarterback. Yeah. But yes, I just don't think, I think maybe the system and the way the ball gets spread out in Green Bay is a little bit more advantageous for wide receivers, whereas
I don't know about that. I think Aaron Rodgers only gives the ball out to people he's trusting. If you drop a ball, he's probably not coming back to you.
Sure. I mean, this is a Travis Kelce led offense. Everybody knows that. Tyreek was Hill, and he's
always open.
Tyreek Hill was here, and they got rid of him. They're like, all right, fine, you can go. We don't need you. We got Travis Kelce. No one double teams him. It's like a rule. Yeah. It's a rule that you can't double team Travis Kelce, and that's why the Chiefs are so good. We've talked about this many times last year.
No, I know. It blows my mind how when his stats are low, they lose. When his stats aren't, they always win.
Yeah.
Just triple team him. Let everybody else open.
That's all you have to do.
Moore and Valdez-Scantling can stay open.
And like Pacheco, McKinnon, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the backfield, that doesn't scare me. I wouldn't be putting all those guys, like all your defense in the box to try to stop the run. It's stop Kelce and then figure everything else out.
Yeah. Pacheco's lead back, no?
Yeah, he is. He'll be one. And then McKinnon, CH had kind of a bad year last year. I don't even know if he'll get that many touches this year. He has to come back strong.
Yeah. I can see Pacheco having a good year. He looked pretty strong finishing up the season last year. He had a good Super Bowl.
Yeah. He was a rookie last year, I believe. So a lot of people in fantasy are betting on him. But again, like the Chiefs, they're a long way from having that like workhouse back that they like the Priest Holmes, Jamal Charles, they used to have back like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, but they had nobody else back then.
No, they didn't. So now they got Mahomes and Kelce. They don't need anybody else.
No.
They don't need anybody else. I got nothing else to say about them. They are probably Super Bowl favorites again this year. I don't know what else you can say that hasn't already been said about the Chiefs.
No, the only challenge I think is maybe the Chargers on a little bit of a revenge season from getting blown out of the playoffs in embarrassing fashion. Might be nipping at their heels for trying to take the division, but yeah,
that's the team I think as well that would be closest to Kansas City in terms of trying, like making the playoffs. Maybe not taking the division just yet, but making the playoffs. Last year, we thought the Chiefs were going to finish last in this division. This was a division last year that we were very, very high on, and we completely messed that up. I think everybody did. Everybody thought the Broncos were going to be good, but the Chargers, they got the same head coach, and it's probably a make or break year for him. Justin Herbert could have a huge year. He could have a huge breakout season. He's a good quarterback. He's a great quarterback. They've switched the offensive coordinators. So they've taken the Dallas Cowboys offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, and he is now the new Chargers coordinator. He was great with Dak, and I think Justin Herbert's a better quarterback than Dak is.
He got a big contract though. That always scares me when somebody gets a big contract.
Only if,
He's the highest paid quarterback this year, is he not? He's getting 52.5 million this year.
yeah, I guess
Justin Herbert's the
so.
highest paid NFL player this year.
Then Lamar Jackson, then Jalen Hurts. Man, I remember when I thought it was be Patrick Mahomes. He's seventh, and then Josh Allen is eighth. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think his Mahomes, his contract is it's huge contract, but it covers him for his career.
Yeah, it's like a 10-year contract.
Yeah, so it's split up a lot among a lot
Yeah,
more
it's
games, which is good for him because now he's fully covered for his NFL career.
well, yeah, for sure. And so everyone else is like at 5 years at 260, 265 ish. Mahomes is 10 years at 450 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're worried that Herbert, after getting his big contract, is gonna, you think he's just not gonna want to play as much or as hard?
You know me, I always like to look at the psychology of things, and I don't have the actual stats to back this up, but it's just a feeling. I think a lot of people would agree with me that your motivation to just strive for excellence to get to that next level changes once you have generational wealth coming in.
I
It
agree with
just,
that. I mean, there's always in every sport, you always see guys that are in their last year of their contracts have their best stats.
yeah,
They're working hardest to try to get that next contract. But yeah, sometimes you could say that guys get it and then they don't work as hard, they don't practice as hard because they've got their guaranteed money.
for a lot of people, it's harder to stay motivated to excel and push yourself beyond. When you take some sports where you're just getting hit, getting hurt all the time, and you're always fighting through pain. You start looking at it as like, why am I doing this? When you can live a cushier life. It,
I totally get that, but at some point, like you have the guys like the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, where it's not the money's just an after, like it's nice to
Michael
have, but
Michael Jordan never was the highest paid player, was he? I mean, maybe he was, but I don't think he was. He was always making all his money outside of the NBA. It didn't seem
gambling.
like he was always chasing money in the NBA.
Is just gambling at the golf course before and after games. No, but seriously, there is two mentalities when it comes to that. Is the guys that work hard because they want the championship, and then there's the guys that work hard for that big salary, that big contract, and then they kind of do dissipate a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean,
You watched that Johnny Manziel
I was
documentary
just
on Netflix?
literally just about to say I watched that Johnny Manziel documentary on Netflix. It was awesome, great documentary. Wasn't too long either because I didn't want to watch 2 hours of Johnny Manziel. I know about his career. We've been watching him forever. It was about an hour long, and I thought it was great. Thought it was
Yeah,
great.
they had that one question his agent asked him. It's like, do you want to be a football player or do you want to win games? Something along those lines. Of like, do you want to be a celebrity? You want to just like live this lifestyle, or do you want to go out there and win games? Because that's what you got to make a decision on. And obviously, he made his decision, but
His
that's where
agent, his agent in that documentary was smart. The things he did to get around Johnny, like to get people to not like judge Johnny Manziel for what he actually was and hide it, between his friend in college who, when he got caught for getting paid to sign memorabilia, and his friend was like created this whole backstory that his Johnny Manziel's family comes from generational
money, yeah.
wealth of oil. And he just made up this whole story that his family already had money. That's why he's able to travel. That's why he's front row at basketball games. That was genius. And then his agent he gets rid of that guy, which was kind of a sad story. The documentary also dumped that guy as quickly as Manziel did once that little fat came out. But his agent then said, like, hey, I had to, like, he was doing drugs the night before the combine. Like, we had to come up with this plan, and like they're gonna put his dad in the hospital so that Manziel didn't have to go to the combine because he had to be in the hospital with his dad. Like, that part was the most interesting part to me because I already knew about all the Manziel stuff before, but the behind the scenes stuff was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it blows my mind how you see all this investigative journalism where people are digging up the truths about the most random things. You would have thought for someone who was as high profile as he was, one person would have looked into his family.
Well, they did. Like, he was the guy made up the storylines. He got all this like information and started like telling lies and stuff.
He's telling lies, but like it was his granddad was a big oil guy.
But he was
Big,
posting photos and stuff. Like he was
okay.
giving media and stuff like actual photos of like oil men that he was like altering into Johnny Manziel's life story.
I see. Okay, so he did. Yeah, I don't think the documentary covered all that. I didn't know about like how the extent of these lies.
It was pretty deep. It was pretty awesome.
Okay, I like it. I mean, it
Yeah,
sounds like they put in the work there.
They got away with a lot of stuff. Anyways, let's get back to the Chargers. The wideouts, I think the wide receivers in the Chargers are their biggest asset. Their defense is pretty good, but if they stay healthy, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen are great wide receivers. And then they brought in, I think, first round pick Quentin Johnson. If anyone knows anything about Quentin Johnson, he came out of like TCU. They stunned everybody and went to the national championship in college this year. He is huge. He is like very much a Megatron type of body, and he could be the rookie of the year this year, offensive rookie of the year.
Now they're running back. Another thing that I always worry about is he's a bit unhappy. Maybe not so much with the team, but with the running back situation. He's one of the lead guys, is he not?
He is, and he's not happy with the team because
yeah.
He is in the last year of his contract, and he wanted to get 3 or 4 more years signed onto him before this season, because you never know running back, like if your knee is going to go or if you're going to get a high ankle sprain and ruin half your season. Like it's a running back position they get hurt a lot, and it is very much devalued. So he's the one that is leading the charge for the Chargers for running backs getting paid.
It's kind of puts him in a tough position, right? Does he want to just put his entire body on the line for a team that didn't have his back? Or does he want to play 75% and kind of trying to avoid getting injured, but then he's not putting up the numbers?
Well, I mean, if he's not putting up the numbers, he's not going to get paid. Yeah, like that's the catch-22 is like you have to put the numbers up in order to get a big contract. But if you're not willing to put the numbers up because you don't want to hurt your body for a team that you think is kind of betraying you, then you're not going to get paid.
Yeah, it's a tough position to be in because we've all had jobs where we don't like our employer. And it's a little bit demotivating sometimes to just go above and beyond. Now, I'm sure he's a competitive guy. I always give these athletes the benefit of the doubt that they're gonna, they're looking to achieve excellence. They're not looking.
But if he's in a contract year and he doesn't go out there and put up the number, he's not going to get a big contract. So he has to. He has to go above and beyond. That's the way. It's also the traditional way of getting yourself more money and promotions is going out of the way to do the job.
Yeah,
to do more than is required of the job. And that is how
he's on the franchise tag, right?
No, he can be franchise tagged next year.
Next year, okay.
Which, if that's a means, if you go out there, put up the numbers, and they don't pay you, then by all means go. No, I went above and beyond last year. You guys went to the playoffs on my back, and now you're not going to pay me 3 or 4 years. You put the franchise tag on me. No, I'm not going to play for you. Like that, that's more acceptable to me than quitting this year.
No, I got you. Now, what happens in that situation? He's got to sit out the year again?
What do you mean again?
Well, sorry, he's got to sit out the year if that happens. They franchise tag him and they don't.
They franchise tag him. He either gets paid probably $11 or $12 million for that year and plays on the another 1 more year on just like no contract, or he sits out the whole season, or he asks for a trade.
That's what I mean. So again, it puts him in a bad position, right?
There's no other position to be in. Here's the bad position that he's in. He's in a position that is not as important anymore as it used to be. Having 3 wide receivers on your team is more important than having 1 bell cow running back. And sorry to say this, but like if nobody wants to eat lobster anymore, the price of lobster is going to go down.
I don't think it's that nobody wants to eat lobster. I think they're still very important. They're like one of the most important players. I think the problem is that there's just an endless supply of lobster coming in every year that you're not running.
Well, then if everyone's out there catching their own lobsters, then there is no market to purchase lobster or sell lobster. That is
the issue, right?
So either way, there's an issue, and that is, I mean, is that not business 101?
It is the business. I'm talking strictly about his psychology of like, kind of feeling deflated. Like, okay, you guys are gonna franchise tag me next year, so I'm on another prove-it contract next year.
Your position's not valuable anymore. So take the money that is given to you at that value and run with it. Literally run with it.
Yeah.
You're not going to get paid. But if you go out there and you put up like score 50 touchdowns and they franchise tag you, then you can sit out. I mean, if you're happy with sitting out a year and getting the $10 million you got this year and then not getting it paid next year, that's fine. That's your choice though.
Yeah, I'm only looking at it from the approach of what can he do to kind of improve his situation, but there's nothing he can do. He's
just play the game. Just play
Yeah.
the game. And then if they worst case scenario, you say, no, I did this for you last year. I'm not doing it again for you this year. It doesn't work out well usually for running backs. Le'Veon Bell is probably the most recent example of a guy demanding a trade at that position and it not going well for him. So I don't like, and he regretted it. He says he's regretted it, but I don't know if Austin Eckler goes out there and plays well with these wide receivers in this offense, then these guys can definitely compete with Kansas City in this division and probably make the playoffs again. It would be awesome to see another Jaguars Chargers game in the playoffs because that was wicked last year. Okay, we talked a lot about that Chargers team, mainly the running back and Johnny Manziel. Let's go. Should we go to your team, your guys, the Vegas Raiders?
Let's go to the Raiders.
Jimmy Garoppolo is now the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. Josh McDaniels was the offensive coordinator for years with New England Patriots, especially when Garoppolo was there. So him trying to bring in Garoppolo and get him back to where he was with the Patriots when he had that such high potential, probably going to put his head coaching job on the line with how well Garoppolo does, would you say?
Was he the one that kind of pushed to get Garoppolo?
I would imagine so. Garoppolo was one of his guys. It was Brady, Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And
now
then,
this is just talking out my ass because I have no facts to substantiate any of this, but this was a backup guy who played 4 games? He had 4 starts
in New England?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's because he was behind Brady.
Yeah. So he was behind Brady. He was never going to play. I feel like it would just be so easy to overlook him in that situation because he's not playing. When we have Tom Brady, he's not playing. There's no chance. Like, you're not really looking for him to back up Brady. You're looking for him to be there in case there's an emergency.
For sure. Yeah.
So I feel like this is a coach that's just kind of like, well, I know one other player in the NFL. I coached one other guy. Like, maybe we get this guy.
I think that's
it's a situation where he's not assessing all the best talent out there. He's going to just what's familiar.
He coached Jimmy Garoppolo. He knows his work ethic. He knows his skill from being around him all those years. Garoppolo then goes to San Francisco, takes that team to the Super Bowl, arguably twice. And then that is kind of a payoff for, okay, he actually has the talent to do it. Coming off a shoulder injury, elbow injury, something like that. But yeah, why would you not trust that guy if you know that the work ethic's there and the skill level is there when he's healthy?
Yeah.
And you've worked with him before, so you're familiar. He knows your system. You know what he's capable of doing in your system.
I think the point I was trying to make was, so far, I don't think McDaniels has been a great coach in the Raiders, has he?
No. Well, this will be his second year.
Yeah. He didn't have a great first year.
No.
So I think for him, he's trying to play it safe, possibly with going with somebody he's familiar with.
Right. So
he thinks, well, I know how to coach him. I know what I can get out of him. I know how he operates.
So you think if he doesn't do well with his guy, then you think he's on the hot seat?
I think he's in the hot seat.
I think so too. And the backup for Jimmy Garoppolo is another former New England Patriot quarterback, Brian Hoyer. Yeah. So he's just bringing his guys in. That one I would say you could make your argument for. Because I know Brian Hoyer. I've worked with him once before. That I think you have a better argument.
You really got me thinking. He's just going for what he knows. That to me, that's just never a good sign.
With Garoppolo, you can make that case with Brian Hoyer, but with Garoppolo,
the fact that he's got both guys If he just had one, fair enough. But the fact that his two quarterbacks, who's the third quarterback? Don't tell me the third.
I can find out for a second right here. I don't know if it's another. There's no way it could be another Patriot. I don't even know if I would know the other Patriots. If it's Jacoby Brissett, we're gonna stop the podcast for right now. Let's see who we got here. Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer. It is a rookie, Aiden O'Connell, fourth round rookie.
Okay.
So no, it's not another New England Patriot.
Yeah, but just personally, my own personal opinion, I don't have a lot of faith in him as a coach. I don't think it's going to work out well. I think the Raiders are unfortunately bottom of the division this year.
Ah, wow, that's really okay.
Well, no, Denver could still be just a big train wreck.
Well, here's the other thing that's going on.
The Raiders were only one game above them last year to finish.
No, I know. This whole division was kind of weird. But another thing going on in Vegas is the exact same thing with the running back. Josh Jacobs has not even shown up to camp yet. And I know you're going to be mad about that because you drafted him to your fantasy team most recently. That is why last night I said pick up his backup, Zamir White.
Yeah.
Because if Josh Jacobs doesn't show up, then at least you have a starting running back in that same system.
Yeah.
But he's actually not. So he's ahead of Eckler in terms of he's not shown up to camp. But I think he is actually on the franchise tag though. So he's a year ahead of Eckler. He would have had to sign, but he doesn't have to show up.
So that's an interesting one. So what does that entail? What is that's to me, that's like you're just not showing up to work.
He's not getting paid, yeah.
But that's just it. You're just foregoing that week's paycheck.
Yep. Exactly.
It seems like an odd choice. It seems like you're not setting yourself up for success in the year if you even want to play.
But you just argued the opposite side.
No, hear me out. Just because if you've already signed, you're already in this deal. Like this is your situation.
Yeah, but sometimes you just sign so that you have a contract to fall back on. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you didn't sign it, then you could be fucked either way. Whereas if you do sign it and just say, hey, I'm going to sign this because if we come up to a long-term plan, then we can use this as kind of like a backup situation, or if we like something like that. But if you don't sign it, then you're fucked altogether.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
Yep. No, I got you. Okay. I just think like you'd want to kind of see what's going on with the team just to set yourself up for success because he's again in the same situation now that he's got to play well, right?
Yeah. But if he did that last year and then got franchise tagged, for my example, to benefit Eckler when we talked about him was if you go out on your last year and then they don't pay you, then maybe sit out. So he's kind of doing what I was saying that Eckler would do, but you have to be okay with losing that $10 million. I also think that you have to sign your franchise tag in order for them to even have the ability to maybe trade you. I think there's something within that as well.
Right.
But I mean, now, like, yeah, what do you do? That's what I mean.
There's no winning.
Position is not valued.
Nobody wants you.
There's two things. The franchise tag is a weird thing. I get why they have it, but it does handicap people a lot in terms of what their worth is and especially with how dangerous this football is. I don't know if it's a great thing for the sport anymore. I get why they did it before. I understand why. You don't want your franchise guys that you drafted, that you built up, that you taught and all this stuff to just leave because they want to go to a shinier place.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's just completely inside of the team because, you don't want 100%. Him to leave. Well, then pay him. You don't want him to leave, then sign him to a contract.
100% agree with that. Now, the other problem right now for him is that like Cook and Zeke just signed. We're already in the middle of the preseason and they just signed and they didn't get anywhere near what Josh Jacobs would get with his franchise 1-year tag. The other two guys are on 1-year contracts now, but for less $2 million and $4 million less dollars a year.
Yeah.
So Josh Jacobs, maybe you got to go and play this year. You can also retire with $10 million.
There's no winning. You're not beating the NFL.
Well, I would understand this if there wasn't a million guys that are capable of doing the job. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyways, The wideouts are also good in Vegas. You got Devontae Adams back. Hunter Renfro's making a name for himself. New tight end. Darren Waller's gone. Austin Hooper is starting for Vegas. Would love to go to Vegas to watch a game. That stadium looks amazing.
So speaking of Raiders wideouts, you heard the news about Henry Ruggs, right?
Yeah, 6 to 8 years, something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Which I don't know the legal side of it. It seems kind of low for vehicular manslaughter, no?
I thought he was going to get 15, 20.
Yeah,
You did kill somebody and their dog.
he did, yeah. And he was breaking multiple laws, right?
Yeah, and he was drunk.
He was drunk, but he was also like the speed at which he was going was excessive, wasn't it? Like
It's like 154 miles an hour or something like that. Like he was in a
yeah, he was not. It wasn't just a drunk driving incident. It was
everything about it was bad. I think there's just like no good way to spin it.
no.
So it's weird that it was. I agree. I thought it was going to be more than 6 to 8 years, but I don't know anything about law. But what I do know is there's a new coach in Denver, and a new coach that's a great coach. It's Sean Payton.
This coach. So I do have something to say about it. It seems to me, and this could completely be a media thing. He's kind of turned people more against Russell Wilson with his entry than like people already kind of down on Russell Wilson last year for all the things that came out, former players speaking ill about him, little things coming about his personal habits. And now this coach, it kind of seems like, he's fired it. He's gotten rid of his outside of the organizational coaches,
Yeah.
his assistants, his coaches, whatever it is. He's got rid of his office, all these things of like just taken away from him, right? Like that's.
Well, I mean, it sounded like he was just they treated him differently than any other player on the team, which is fine as a quarterback on the field. Like you don't want to get hit, you don't want to do that. But in terms of like getting your own office and like parking spot at the front and stuff like that, when your other players that are equally as valuable to your performance, which is all you're getting paid for in that position, then yeah, he's kind of a prima donna.
It makes sense to me if you've got, 4 Super Bowls within the organization, give him his own fucking statue in the arena.
Yeah, but
this is a guy who just got here.
And he's done nothing for the team. So this will be his second year with the team. Do you think they brought Peyton in specifically to get Russell back to where he was because of how good Peyton was with Drew Brees?
I'm sure that's kind of the rationale behind it. Whether it's doable, I don't know.
So here's the other thing about there's a lot. Denver's weird.
Personally, I think it's going to be. It's a tough uphill climb for Russell Wilson, only because I think the media is against him. I think there's got to be a bit of resentment from the players towards him.
Oh, for sure.
The players are kind of like, listen, buddy, show us, like you win us over.
Yeah. So they also let's talk about this for 1 second, because I think you're right that all the things now getting taken away from him, like his office, his personal assistants, his own trainers that he brings in, that's all gone now. Sean Payton's not letting that happen. So maybe if Russell Wilson can come in with a better attitude and better game performance, that's an easy way to win over your teammates very quickly. But if he's kind of a dick about it and like whines about it, then it's not going to help his case at all. But let's not forget that I should go back to the beginning. So Russell Wilson was traded for 2 first-round and 2 second-round picks. So Denver gave up 4 top 2 picks for Russell. That was based on Nathaniel Hackett bringing him in. Didn't work out. Hackett got fired up with a 4-11 record before his first season was even over. To get Sean Payton, the Broncos had to trade their first-round pick after like another first-round pick to New Orleans just to bring in a coach to fix the problem that they traded 4 top picks for to get Russell Wilson. So essentially it's going to take 5 top picks to make this work. That's not worth it.
No.
And the team around him is built, like the wideouts are good. Like Jerry Jeudy's a very good wide receiver. Courtland Sutton has the ability and potential to be good. They brought in Marvin Mims.
I love those big guy receivers.
Yeah, like their wide receivers are good. They drafted a guy in the second round, and they brought in Marquez Callaway. I don't know if you remember him, but he used to play for the Saints I think 2 years ago, last year. But during preseason, he was the guy making all those crazy like one-handed catches like over the back and during games and stuff, and then like just sprinting by people. So another Sean Payton guy. Javonte Williams had an ACL tear last year. They brought in Samaje Perine, who was the backup for Joe Mixon with the Bengals. Could steal touches from him. This is a good spot for Perine to be in, especially early. Like, I don't know if Javonte Williams is going to be ready to go week 1. They say he is, but it's an ACL tear. You never know with running backs.
I don't think, personally, I don't see it happening. Russell Wilson's only older.
That's why I think Broncos are the last place team in this division.
No, you're right. Yeah, I'm looking at it. And also, their games were terrible to watch last year. Did you try to watch a Broncos game last year?
Boring, like 6-3, 3-3.
And they were just anomaly games. They weren't getting blown out. That was the only saving grace I could give to them, that maybe they could string some wins together this year, is they weren't getting blown out last year.
The defense is there. Like the defense, that's what was so frustrating about probably the Denver fans probably getting frustrated with the fact that their defense was holding them into games and they couldn't score any points to win those games. So you have to score at least 10 points, 7 points. You got to put 3 up. You got to do something better than, you can't just let your defense carry you and then not provide for them. Now, the last thing I want to say about the Denver Broncos is I saw this morning, which made me chuckle. So the Broncos finished 7-10 in 2021. So what they did was they went out, they traded for a Hall of Fame quarterback that's won a Super Bowl in Russell Wilson. They did that before 2022 season. This year sounds a lot like what the New York Jets just did. They finished 7-10 last year. They went out, traded for Aaron Rodgers, who is a Hall of Fame quarterback that's won a Super Bowl. 2022, before the start of the season, star wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy, you could probably say, coming into their sophomore seasons, hyped up, supposed to have breakout years for them. This year, Garrett Wilson, New York Jets, sophomore season wide receiver, hyped up beyond belief. A little too familiar, these two stories. Then you got in 2022, an injury-prone running back coming off a season, tears his ACL, does not do well the next year. That's in Denver. This year, Breece Hall, sophomore season running back, supposed to be huge, coming off an ACL tear. Both defenses are great in the Jets and what the Broncos had, but Broncos wanted to fix their head coaching position with Nathaniel Hackett in 2022. What did the Jets do this year? They signed offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. I saw that this morning and was like, damn, the Jets just did exactly what the Broncos did a year before, and they did not work for them. Kind of puts a little spin on how I thought the Jets would be scary this year, but with all that information, sets me back on them a little bit. So I had them going worst to first, but we'll talk about that next week. I just thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go NFC West. You want to talk about your Seahawks first?
Seahawks. So I think everybody's asking themselves the same question. Can Geno Smith replicate his success from last year? He was, he was comeback player of the year, right?
Yep.
Definitely, I'd say maybe he was the biggest surprise in the NFL last year.
I would say, yeah,
and
100%.
I'm on his side. I'm hoping he does well. I can't say there's any reason why he should decline.
I have one thought about that. So we talk a lot about the first year quarterbacks, like your Vince Youngs, your RG3s that come out in their first year. Nobody has any game film really on them. Nobody has any like way to stop them because this is the first year they've seen them. So you're just kind of going out and being like, we just have to do this like base defense because we don't really know what this guy's capable of because we don't have too much tape on him. And then the second year they come out, everyone studied them. Everybody knows the offense that they're running. Everybody knows their plays, their hot routes, what they like to do, what they don't like to do. Is that kind of maybe what Geno Smith could be running on with his second season now? Is like, you don't really have much tape on him. Like, I know he's played before and he's a veteran of the league of many, many years, but this is his first year really starting for a whole season. So maybe there wasn't a lot of tape on him. Do you think that could
he never started for the Jets?
He was a starter, but I mean, it wasn't a full year. He never really got into a system and a groove and wasn't able to go into the season really being like, this is my team. This is what we're going to have a team suited to his style of play instead of him coming in with a different style to try to help that team.
Yeah. I don't know. I watched some of his plays. Like I watched the decision making, and he was doing the right decision. Like he was doing the right thing. It's like I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be as good as he was last year, unless it's just a physical health decline.
So you don't think having more tape on him in an offense that's suited to him is going to help defenses this year coming up?
I guess it could help, but does it make that much of a difference having that much tape on a guy?
It
Because
seems like it does. Like Vince Young
well,
wasn't good after his first year.
my only reason for that is all these quarterbacks you're talking about, they get figured out pretty quickly, though, don't they?
That's what I mean. Is after the first season, they get figured out pretty quickly. They tend to decline in the second year, and then they either work through it or they don't work through it in the third and fourth years.
Okay, yeah, I get your point. I feel like there's still enough tape, unless he's drastically. I didn't watch him in his previous years, his stints in other teams. I feel like if we looked up how many games he's actually played before the Seahawks,
Right.
he's got to have a season's worth. No,
I don't know if he's started a full season like this.
no, but just I mean, he's got 16 starts before the Seahawks.
I'm going to check that right now. Pro Football Reference, the go-to place to find your stats. Started all 17 games last year. Okay, so he started his career with the Jets. He played 16 games in 2013 for the Jets. He went 8-8. 55% completions, 12 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. That was his first year in the NFL. So he has, as a rookie, he had a full season. The next year he went 3-10, which is not great. And then he hasn't started more than 3 games since 2014 until last year. So almost a decade.
But that's enough. That's over 2 seasons worth of starts.
Yeah. Sorry, but that's that's young. That's like he goes 8-8 in his rookie year. He comes out, everyone's got tape on him, and he goes down to 3-10. So now that he's transformed into a different quarterback, you have to say that because it's been
the cycle
10 years. So yeah, is the cycle going to repeat? Is his first year somewhat success going to is it going to be a downfall, a decline in the second year?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I'm convinced. Yeah.
And then the other side of that is, if you want to look at the positives, that this is this first year he's going into a season knowing that he's a starter with a 4-year contract. So he should be high, he should be confident, he should have the ability to want to go out and do it. And he has the ability to get all the first team reps, work with the guys in the offseason. It's his team now. Like, does that confidence help him out? Maybe. But the other thing is the team around him is great. Like the wide receivers, and not the team around him, but the playmakers around him are great. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Nagiba?
I don't know. I didn't even want to try to check that one.
Yeah. Jackson Smith.
That J throws you off. You don't know where
I don't know if it's silent or not. Yeah. I don't know where it is. And then a second-year running back, Kenneth Walker. So the weapons are around him. He just has to be exactly what he did last year, kind of manage the system. He was great last year. If he's 75% as good as he was last year, they'll make the playoffs.
Yeah. Speaking of the running backs, you heard that one of their former running backs, Alex Collins, he had a motorcycle accident. I think it was a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, motorcycle accident. Rest in peace to Alex Collins. Still young. I think he was under 28. 30. 28, yeah.
28 years old.
That's awful. That is awful. Want to go? Let's go.
Well, where do we put Seattle? I think Seattle seems to always kind of compete with the 49ers. I mean, they're going to be a few games behind, I think.
Yeah, that's a good segue to talk about the 49ers, because I think the 49ers win this division again, but I also think that they're weird because they seem to always have like rags to riches at QB. So QBs are either really good and then they get hurt and someone comes in that's really good and they're like, don't care anymore about the guy that got hurt. And it just like you have Trey Lance, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy.
So Brock Purdy's the starter, right?
Brock Purdy
Following by your logic of how much tape people have on you before they can figure you out, I don't think Brock Purdy's met his quota yet to be in that second year slump.
Yeah, this will technically be his first full season as a starter. Or his rookie season, essentially. You could say he was redshirted last year. I think he started the last 7 games that they won.
Yeah. And
Then
he
he got
got
hurt.
what?
Then he got hurt in the playoffs.
How many playoff games did he get in?
I think he won.
He did
He
play the one
won
playoff
one.
game.
He won one, and then the next game, did he not
It was
get hurt?
the Eagles. He was okay.
He got hurt, right? And they had to bring somebody else in. That's how I remember it.
Right. And then against the Eagles,
They just didn't have a quarterback. I remember.
No, he got hurt, went out, and had to come back in because there was nobody else left.
Yeah.
They were gonna play McCaffrey. I remember that.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, I mean, yeah, technically you're right. Like Brock Purdy could either be really good this year because no one really knows what he's still capable of, or again, he was Mr. Irrelevant. So, how good is he actually?
Yeah, well, when is he expected to start? Week 3, week 4?
Week 1. He'll be QB1 week 1.
Oh, he's healthy. He's healthy enough to start.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought he was still a little bit sluggish from his recovery.
No, he's back. It was an elbow. Yeah, elbow surgery. He's going to be ready for the season. They brought in another backup. So Trey Lance is on the team still. So
he's still waiting for his rookie year.
Well, essentially, yeah.
He's had 1.5. He's played 1.5 games, does he not?
Oh no, I think he's had some starts. Trey Lance. Let me take a look at that with since we can't get anybody to stick around for us here.
Didn't he come in injured? He came into the NFL injured, did he not?
I think he was just behind Garoppolo. I don't know if he was injured.
He started injured, got healed.
He started 2 games in 2021 and he started 2 games in 2022.
Okay, 4 games.
So 4 games. In his first 2 games in 2021, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His 2 games last year that he started, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So not great. But I mean, you could trade him because now you have another backup in Sam Darnold that is apparently everybody loves him right now in San Francisco. They're saying it could be a resurrection of his career. He was a top 5 pick.
He was. He never really saw much success.
No, he wasn't. Anywhere. He didn't do well the Jets, and then he didn't do well in Carolina. People thought he was resurrected in Carolina, but now with Kyle Shanahan, it feels like anybody who plays under Kyle Shanahan is going to be good.
Well, it's one of those situations where just throw the ball to your running back and let your receiver run it. And yeah, that confuses everybody in itself. And they seem to do well with that.
Well, I mean, they got arguably the best running back in football, CMC, who can catch the ball anywhere.
Yeah, they got one of the best receiving running backs. And they got one of the best running receivers.
Yeah. Deebo Samuel, who's the guy talking about that they've started at running back. And then you got Brandon Ayuk, who's he led everybody in receiving stats last year. And then at tight end, you got George Kittle, who there's probably Kelsey. And then I would say Kittle is next in that line.
Yeah. And then they got two of the best players on defense as well.
Yeah. And the defense is great.
Yeah.
It's one of those like practices, iron sharpens iron type situations. Those guys only going to make themselves better practicing against each other. Offense versus defense there.
Yeah, they got a good situation. Their quarterback is the only questionable part of who's going to be playing at what point, but
which is insane to say for a team that's expected to win a division. Is the quarterback situation isn't kind of really sorted out a little bit, but they're favorites.
Well, I mean, it's sorted out. Brock Purdy's the guy. He's the guy walking in, right?
Sure, but I don't trust his resume. Would you trust Brock Purdy as going into your? Like,
yeah,
would you trust Brock Purdy?
This is what I said about him last year. This is what I said about him last year. No, being the last pick in the draft, having very few starts in the NFL, it's tough to jump on that resume. However, he has done nothing to indicate there's no reason to trust him. He's done everything that he possibly could have done outside of getting hurt.
Yeah.
But even when he got hurt, I love the heart he showed. He showed he was there for the team. Jumping back in that game in a futile effort.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the opposite
he
of
shows
Johnny
the right
Manziel.
character. He shows everything correctly. There's no reason why he shouldn't be trusted to be the number one guy, right? Everybody's got to start somewhere. You
The
can't come
only
into the league with 10 years experience and 3 Super Bowls, right?
right. I
You got
mean,
to start from 0-0.
as I say, he's the opposite of Johnny Manziel because we were talking about him earlier. He came in as a guy who was literally the last pick of the draft. Could have just not been drafted, and then we would have never ever heard about him ever.
Yeah.
The only now he has the intangibles and the willingness to work to be QB1. Does he have the skill to do it? Is the question. Everyone's high on him now because of what he did last year, but let's remember he still hasn't proven anything
No,
in
but
the long term.
does he have the skill to take a team that's in the depths up, make them relevant? Maybe not. But does he have a skill to take a great coach and a great offense and reliable defense and maintain the success they've already been having? Yeah, he probably does have that skill. Right?
Yep.
He's not the Johnny Manziel thing, to use him as a reference. Yet he was there to resurrect an abysmal team, Cleveland, take them out of the basement. This is a team that is competing to kind of get there within a one game of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right.
I
so
was mainly
just
using
maintain that. He does have that skill set. Yeah, I would say he does.
I was mainly using the Manziel thing as in he didn't want to play football. He was there for everything outside of football. He was there for the celebrity status, not actually playing football.
I'll say
film.
this, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a Manziel thing, but I love the perspective they put it in of he didn't love football. What he loved about it is what it created, that after party. He was there for the after party, and it painted such a great image because I completely understood the feeling of that. Was his, like people get off work Friday, they go for some beers. Those are the best beers they have that week, right after a long week's work.
Yeah,
the after party after a game, that's what he lived for. That was his drug right there.
Oh yeah, he was there for weekends. He was literally like a blue collar worker, there to get the money so that he could be there for the weekends.
And I think it would shock us how many athletes are only there for the lifestyle. It's the lifestyle is the only thing that motivates them, right? Like,
yeah,
as soon as you see it, you cut their salaries in half. They don't even want to do it anymore. They're like, well, no, I'm not going to play for that, right?
Yeah. I still think that back to the 49ers, I still think they win this division.
I think so too. They got too many weapons. They're too solid of a team.
Yeah, that's what exactly it.
Yeah.
Purdy just has to manage the game. Literally just has to manage the game, and this team, they'll win up over 10 games.
Yeah.
So there's 2 teams left. I know we're 2 years removed from the Rams winning the Super Bowl. They could be last place in this, but I will say, let's talk about the Rams first because I don't think they'll be last place. I think the last team we talked about is going to be last place. You brought it up earlier.
Yeah. So my sentiments, and I know you're probably not going to like hearing this, is I think Stafford is on his way to being done in the NFL only for one reason, not a skill thing. I think he played too injured for too long in his career that it just takes a toll on his body. And I think it's finally he got his Super Bowl. His body's just going to give out at one of these days here. It's been a long time coming for him. He was like an Iron Man guy, right?
Yeah.
And you can only do that for so long before your
especially when you lose. It's different to be an Iron Man guy and win. Yeah. And then be an Iron Man guy and just continuously lose. You just get broken spirited after that. But here's what I will say. Matthew Stafford, I agree with you. If he stays healthy this year and they win, maybe he comes back for another year. If he does not stay healthy this year, I think it's his last year. So I will agree with you on that. Now, it also seems like everybody on this Rams team wants to retire. Sean McVay, it seems like every time this season ends, Sean McVay is probably going to go to the booth and not coach anymore. Seems like Aaron Donald, who's
I thought he did retire.
No, Sean McVay, he's back.
Aaron Donald. I thought Aaron Donald did retire.
That's what I mean. No, he's back too.
He's back.
So all these guys and Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, Aaron Donald, they all want to retire. It seems like they're all just waiting to retire. They're always talking about retiring. Well, how does the rest of the team get behind that?
Off the top of my head, it is the worst like it's a terrible vibe that everybody's always talking about retirement. That's a geriatric.
Yeah.
But the only thing I will say, the greatest basketball player, in my opinion, of all time, was retiring every few years and coming back. But that's the only.
That kind of ends the whole argument topic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But he was going to try to do something. I guess McVay could go try to do something else. But
McVay's too young
wrong.
to retire, though. I guess
that's what he's younger than us.
He's been in the NFL as a coach since he was 18 or something.
Yeah, I mean, how can you trust a team to want to win again if everybody's kind of already got a foot out the door?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, like Aaron Donald is probably the best defensive player in the league. And the guy's going to be an all-time NFL Hall of Famer. It's just is the motivation there if you've already talked about maybe retiring?
But the motivation is also going to be tough when the team is losing, right? It was a terrible year last year.
Everybody was getting hurt.
Coming off
Cooper
the high
Kupp went down.
Yeah. Coming off as a high of a Super Bowl to the low of just getting killed every week, that might be a little bit deflating. So once you get a little bit of time away from the game, you can properly reflect and think, hey, what do I love about this? What do I not love about this? Do I want to be away from it? And you can kind of get a little clarity and come back and say, you know what? No, my heart's still in it. I want another season at this.
Yeah, right? I'm with you. It's just this is the second year now that they've talked about these guys all retiring. It's just I don't know. I would not trust them to win if like that's constantly that mentality.
No, I don't think they will win. Cooper Kupp, where does he stand in terms of injuries?
He'll be back. He should be ready for week 1.
So he's good to go. It's going to be kind of his team on offense, right?
100%. It goes like Cam Akers always hurt. He could have a comeback year, but it's Cooper Kupp and nobody else. Yeah. There's the rest of the wide receiver groups. Like it's
Van Jefferson
and Ben Skowronek.
Skowronek, yeah.
Like it's Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford or nobody. That's not great to begin with. Like just that conversation alone would put you off of the Los Angeles Rams, let alone everybody trying to retire. Maybe that is why everyone's trying to retire. Cooper Kupp's the only reason everybody's still there.
And who's behind our man Matthew Stafford?
This Stetson Bennett. I don't know if you might hear the name. He was the quarterback out of Georgia. He's like 26
He's close to
years
retirement,
old.
Is he?
He's like 26, 27 years old. Yeah. To put that into perspective, Sony Michel played running back with Stetson Bennett at Georgia and has since retired from being 6 years in the league with 2 Super Bowls. And Stetson Bennett is a rookie this year in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane. But I mean, he was a good quarterback in college. That doesn't usually relate all the time, especially for the type of quarterback he is and the age he's at.
Yeah.
So it's Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp or bust.
But what is a successful season for them? Taking second place in the division?
I think a wild card spot. I think San Francisco's got this wrapped up, and then they just need if they can get a wild card spot, if they can beat Seattle in the standings, that's probably a successful season for the Rams.
Right.
They got to make the playoffs though. Okay, well, if we're talking about retiring and teams that have already quit, might as well start talking about the Arizona Cardinals, because I have a feeling that this is going to be the worst team in the league this year. Houston Texans, I think, win more games than the Arizona Cardinals. We got a new coach, former Eagles defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon is now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray was hurt last year. He should be back, but nobody's sure if he's 100%. Backing him up is Colt McCoy. So those are your 2 quarterbacks, and a lot of people don't really have any faith in Kyler Murray anymore.
No, I think it's pretty justified. Just the stories of you hear where he doesn't seem committed to being a better player. He seems very set on where he is, and that's it. That was last year's. Like the whole clause where he's got to watch more tape. All the stats people have done that he's playing more video games than he is practicing or
Yeah.
watching tape or trying to get better. And I think there was a lot of, negativity between him and the organization as a whole.
Yep.
So
Because
that
they let that leak.
relationship,
Essentially, they let that information leak to try to make him look worse to lower his contract value.
yeah. Which I don't think it just creates friction between the whole team, and
That's operating in bad faith.
They got the receivers aren't anything crazy. I think Marquise
they lost DeAndre Hopkins, who was there last year, so
but
he's
they let
gone.
him go. Did they not let him go?
Yeah, they just let him go.
Yeah,
he wasn't happy there. Nobody's happy in Arizona right now. Like they got Hollywood Brown, Zach Pascal, and Rondell Moore. Those are the wideouts in Arizona.
Yeah.
That's not
Zach
great.
Ertz, he's not the Zach Ertz of Philadelphia days, is he? He's
If they have Zach
not
Ertz,
as
it'll be
impactful in the game, is he?
No, he's not prime Zach Ertz. I mean, he's an upgrade. Like Zach Ertz will always be good for dressing room morale and IQ on the field and reading defenses and blocks and stuff like that. But he's not going to catch 10 to 12 touchdowns a year. I don't think anyways, but I mean, he could prove me wrong.
So
they got James Conner as the best thing about this team. And I don't even know if he's the best. I don't even know if he's a top 10 running back on any other team. But this team, they're probably going to overuse him and run the ball because no one has any faith in anybody on this team.
No, but Kyler Murray can run the ball too.
Yeah, well, that's it. So they can do a lot of like run options.
What do we know about their coach?
It's a defensive coach. So I don't know if he's going to have much to say on offense. And we know how well that goes if he does chime in, if you just look at Matt Patricia.
Yeah, but he's an anomaly. He's different. He's a different idiot than everybody else.
He's the biggest idiot. I'm actually wondering who he brought in Cardinals offensive coordinator. Sean Kugler. Nope. Drew Petzing is his first season with the Cardinals, 10th in the NFL after being hired as the Cardinals offensive coordinator. Past 3 seasons with Cleveland. He was the quarterbacks coach with the Browns last year. That's not great. If I know anything about the Browns, is that they've never had a good quarterback, a successful quarterback.
No. We'll get into it next week, but their quarterback's on a. He's got no more excuses this year.
No, we'll get into that next week. That's a great segue because next week we're going to do the NFC, AFC North, my favorite divisions. Do you have anything to wrap up with the West?
No, I'll ask you the same question I've asked you every week.
Do
you see a worst to first in any of these 2 divisions?
So you'd have the Broncos or the Cardinals. So no, Cardinals go. They're dead last.
I mean, even if you took the second worst team, right?
The Rams. I mean, they've lost some defense. Jalen Ramsey's gone on the Rams. Then if you go Broncos or Raiders, we'll leave that to when we do our predictions because I don't want to say no to either of these teams because there's going to be
Kansas City.
There's going to be somebody. We know this. There's going to be a team that goes worst to first. We talk about this at the end of every show so far this preseason. Huh. But I'm going to save that for after we do the divisions because I think there could be. Now that I look at it and kind of think about it, there's potential here. It's got to be somebody. And it was the Jets for me.
I'm throwing it out. I'm throwing it out. Your team next year. Next week we'll discuss it. But I'm putting the Lions as my worst to first.
What do you mean? They weren't worse. They finished second in the division.
But they've been historically bad.
You can't. That's not how this works. You can't. I do not accept that. It doesn't work. Doesn't work like that.
I know. I'm just bothering you.
Okay. Next week, NFC, AFC North. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great weekend. Running Down the Clock is brought to you by the Ordinary Podcast Network and is every Thursday running until the week after the Super Bowl. We hope you enjoyed enough to subscribe and tune in again next week.